Welcome, everyone. Dr. Louise Swartzwalter here with the Brain Soul Success Show. And this is where we learn, explore, and create your powerful, positive healing for life. And my guest, Doug Poynter, today, I just love you, Doug, and I love the work that you're doing in the world. You do some unique work, and I know you're making such great changes for folks with their animals, with their dogs. So this is going to be just a great conversation. I want to introduce you, formally to everybody here. So I'm just going to go ahead and read your bio, really. You've been in business for more than 20 years, helping dog owners understand their canine family members. Your behavior often reinforces your pet's behavior problems, you say. So becoming aware of the problematic behavior is the very first step. So Dog eases your mind by showing you the causes of the dog's behavior problems. So as a result, he balances that relationship between, right? So what you're doing is you're help balancing that relationship between you and the dog, between the owner and the dog. That's brilliant because people need that today. And I know that many national dog training services, they use only one method. But you're not limited to one type of style. So I can't wait to dive in and find out about that, more about the style that you're using of training. So, people really, my daughter just had you got a new puppy now about a year ago, and they worked with a dog trainer too. And I don't think Penny would be who she is today, the animal she is, without the proper training.
It's very important.
It's very important. And I even think about that too, as we're looking at purchasing another house where we can have a fence and a dog.
There you go.
And I would definitely be reaching out,
Give me a call.
To you to be doing that, so I know you've created such great solutions for people and you like to work positively with people. And so Doug, I'm curious though, how did you even start, better dog behavior now?
So, Louise, I've always done some type of training. I taught people how to play tennis for about 10 years. And prior to that, when I was a kid, I was always doing some type of coaching or training. I played football. I would force my little brother who played football to go through these coaching sessions in our backyard. And so it's kind of always been in my blood. And I got a dog, even though I couldn't have a dog when I was a kid because I had allergies. I got a dog finally. Later on in life when my allergies went away and I had a behavior problem with that dog. He growled at me one night over a bone and it was a serious growl. It sounded like he wanted to take my face off. And this was the sweetest dog that you've ever seen in your life. And so that kind of threw me for a loop. He was an American Pit Bull Terrier. And this was back in the days when everybody still thought Pit Bulls were evil dogs. And so I have to admit, the headlines went through my mind. I wonder if that's what everybody's talking about. I wonder if he's really a bad dog. And then I started to study everything I could study on behavior. And I found out that I caused that problem. And as soon as I changed my behavior, he went back to being the sweet dog that he'd always been. We never had an issue. And that is what kind of fired me up to do this. And that was over 20 years ago. And for the majority of that time, I've been doing this kind of underground. I've been doing it while I was working on my corporate career as a sales trainer and a sales coach and kind of doing this on the side. And I guess, you would probably have never even heard of me unless you were in this area, Richmond, Virginia, where I live. And you got referred to me by a vet or somebody at a rescue organization or somebody that I'd worked with. And it's been, I guess, in the last 3 years or so that I've been bringing this business more out into the open and focusing more on it. But I focus primarily on behavior problems and solving those problems because it's most of the time not nearly as bad as everybody thinks. And usually it's a human problem. So I work with humans and dogs. And as you said, it was perfect the way you said it, balance the relationship out.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Wow, I love what you're doing because I don't know if everybody's taking that angle. So I'm curious though, with the pit bull, that was your teacher, how you even started all this. What did you have to change in you so that pit bull became sweet again?
Well, he never was unsweet. It was just that one particular situation. He assumed a leadership role because I had given it to him and didn't realize I had given it to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of the foundational pieces of this is not what a lot of people think. It's not dominance. You know, we hear that all over the place. We've got to dominate our dogs in order to have them behave. It's not dominance. Wolves don't even do that. It's leadership. And so,
Oh, nice.
I had given him the leadership position without knowing it and switched the organizational chart, going back to my corporate days. So
Okay.
that he was above me on the org chart, and that bone was something that he wanted. And when I got near him, he warned me off. This is my bone. Get away from me. And so once I switched my behavior and assumed a leadership role with my dog, and by the way, you don't have to do anything bad to your dog to make that happen at all. It's not corrections and it's not punishment. It's not that at all. It's a switching of the energy and a switching of the way you relate to your dog. Once that happened, his behavior went into a much more pleasant disposition, exactly his normal dog disposition, and he was happy to be the follower while I was the leader. It was very easy.
Wow, I love how you're doing. I mean, I love that. I love how you're talking about the leadership versus, it doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be you're the boss. It's more leadership. I like that word a lot. How do you do that though?
Well, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
It's not heavy. In a wolf pack, we've always thought over the years that the alpha male was alpha because he was bigger, stronger, and he could fight off all the other males in the pack. But that's not it. The world's foremost authority on wolves, Dave Meach, wrote a book about 50 years ago describing wolf behavior and the dominance in a wolf pack. And then probably 15 or so years ago, he came out and said, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. That book was written based on a prior study, an old study of captive wolves. When he had a chance to go study the wolves on Ellesmere Island and actually infiltrate the pack for 16 summers, he said he never saw one dominant behavior, but there was lots of leadership. And so what I did is I thought to myself, some of the things that we do in training, a lot of things that we do in training are based on the fact that our dogs are civilized wolves. So if it's good enough for wolves, it's good enough for our dogs. And we thought all along wolves are dominant with each other, so therefore we must be dominant with our dogs. When Dr. Meach proved that that was wrong, that's when I started to think. And by the way, I'm not the only person who's been here. There are other people out there who are saying the same thing. William Campbell was probably the front runner for all of this back in the 1970s. He wrote a textbook called Behavior Problems in Dogs. So that with Meach's work got me thinking about this. Meach noticed that the leaders in a wolf pack initiate activity. And so my dog knew how to get me to give him the attention and the love that he wanted. And so he could give me a look, he could paw my leg, he could nudge my hand with his nose, he could bark, he could drop a toy in front of me and get me to play with it. And that is him initiating activity with me. And if I follow, then I put myself under him because he started an activity and I followed him. So when I switched that, when I made him do a little work for my love, if he wants to play, you got to give me a little obedience. Okay, I'll throw the toy for you, but you got to sit first. I'll take you outside, but you got to sit first. I'll pet you, but you got to come to me first. It changed like that. And he went right back to being the loving dog, and I was the leader. And dogs have to have a leader. That's how they've survived for millions of years.
Wow, that's that's really, I love how you explain that. That makes so much sense. That makes sense. So really that's what you're doing when you're coaching people. You're, like you said, you work more with humans than the animal. You're helping the human to help the animal.
I work with both.
Okay.
But what I find is in most cases, well, I get phone calls every day. I got one the other day. My dog has been biting people, nipping people, and getting real pushy with people. And, the first thing I ask is, well, where does he sleep? And the answer is always the same, in the bed with me, and that's right there where the leader is supposed to be sleeping. And then I always say, and how much have you just loved on this dog and spoiled this dog and just given him affection for no reason whatsoever? And the answer is always a lot. I always say, your dog is running your house. And your dog feels like he or she is the reason for your existence. And I always say, you give your dog more attention than you would give a child. And they always go, I do. And I go, that's what your problem is. And so once we switch that, Not that you can't love your dog, but
Sure.
once we make there be a little price to pay for it, in the dog training world, it's known as nothing in life is free. Once we make your dog have a little bit of a job, then all of a sudden the behavior stops getting really pushy. All of a sudden, in most instances, they start to follow you and they change. Their behavior normally changes pretty quickly. Now, here's where my work really comes in, is that when we got issues, when we got dogs that have maybe bitten people or nipped people or gotten real pushy with people, many times there needs to be behavior modification that's done on top of this leadership switch. But there's no amount of behavior modification that's going to work if the owner is not the leader. And every human in the house is not the leader with the dog. So that's the kind of work that I do with folks.
Wow, that makes so much sense. I love it. I love that.
I had somebody last night with an Australian Shepherd who two behavioral trainers had told her to take him back to the rescue organization. The vet had said, you need to give him Prozac. So they were going to load him up on Prozac. And he had nipped a person, he had bitten a dog. And so when I went out and met with him, he was a great dog. I just started having him do work for me. I started having him do obedience for me. He followed me. I showed his owner how to do the same thing. And he was an absolutely wonderful dog. But all kinds of people were thinking, we need to get rid of this dog. And it was simply because the owner had switched the leadership position. The dog was running the transactions and the owner was following. So he was getting a little pushy with people. And so once we switched the transaction, owner's running it, dog's now following it. He changed like that.
It's so simple, but it's so profound. It makes so much sense.
It's simple, which is what makes it difficult.
Now, very true.
Now, granted, look, here's the story. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. There are dogs that have got some serious behavior problems that we need to do some serious work on. And I do that. I've got another couple with a dog who's bitten people's hands. Well, that dog has been hit, and he was a rescue dog. And anytime anyone would get near him with their hand, he would do that because he's been hit. When you go to pet him, he ducks his head. And the second session I had with them, I said, "Did you notice how he ducked his head when you went to pet him?" And they went, "Yeah." I went, "He's been hit. He's hand shot." And so we've got to work on that. But none of that works if we don't have an owner who's a leader.
Who's a leader?
Yeah.
Yes. That that makes sense. That the angle that I actually take with animals. I'm not a behavior trainer like you. I don't do anything like that. But I do energy work. And I was thinking of a veterinarian that I trained in my system who was able to do energy work on animals and calm them down. So those rescue calls that came in, she was trained in doing acupuncture on animals. And so she would do the energy work and calm the dog down so that they could do acupuncture for, for any kind of physical issue or whatever that was going on with the dog. But it also was always emotional too. So when I think about, what you're doing in terms of leadership, I just feel like it's your energy that also works with animals and people, Doug, because of the training that you've done with yourself, and being able to hold that position and hold that place as a leader and as a coach. So it's energetic too. It's energetic, isn't it?
It is, and I'll give you, and for your listeners, I'll give you a little tip and a little hint. I told my client last night with this Australian Shepherd, I said, I want you to notice how I approach him. He's right here. I'm not going to approach him dead on like that because dogs don't do that. The way dogs dissipate the energy and dissipate the tension and relax everything is they approach on a curve. If you watch dogs, if they're coming nose to nose like that, there's going to be a problem. They don't typically do that. They curve like that, and that lightens everything up. So when I approached my client with their dog last night, I did not walk straight at him. I walked on a curve like that.
Nice.
Excuse me. And he just immediately relaxed. And then he did another thing that dogs do to relax. He turned and looked away from me. That's their way of dissipating some energy. And so I didn't approach anymore when he looked away. I just waited for him to look back at me, and he had a relaxed look on his face. and I continued to make a little curving approach. I never walked up and tried to touch him. I walked up to him and I stood sideways in front of her and him, because frontwards is confrontational, sideways is comfortable. That's one of the things that you can do, is walk parallel. You know, like two dogs walking parallel is very relaxing for the dogs. And so if you mimic that, if you're not coming straight at the dog, but you're standing sideways, it tends to relax everything. And so he just kind of relaxed. And as soon as he relaxed, I rewarded him. I use marker training, which is a clicker. As soon as he relaxed, I clicked and tossed him a food treat. He was like, oh, wow, I like this guy. And then before we were done, I had him sitting for clicks and treats. And he's like, I'll do anything you want me to do. And so she went, wow, he really likes you. And I said, yeah, you know, so that's kind of how I do it.
I love it. I love it. So you are using a lot of energy work as well. And I love that. You know what? And I'm thinking about that as you're actually talking about it. I'm thinking about when I'm hiking and someone's walking along with a dog next to me. And, you know, and they kind of stop and I slow down too. We're stopping for each other. And I'll ask them, may I pet your dog? You know, first. And you're right. I'm approaching them from the side.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this with the dog. I didn't even think about that till like you just mentioned that right now. And I you know, I don't think we even sometimes know that we're doing that, but what a great tip. You know, what a great tip.
Well, you do it you probably do it kind of naturally, you
Yeah.
know, and it's a thing that it helps to keep the confrontation down and relaxes everything. Now, here's the thing. If the dog is loose, I mean, I can do that because she's got him on a leash and we've got control. So we don't need to worry about anything. And you just see him relax. I've had dogs that have bitten people before who, when I stand sideways in front of them at a distance where I know they're not going to get me, you know, and the owner's got the dog on a leash, they lay down. And I had an owner look at me one time and went, that's never happened. And as soon as the dog lays down, click, treat. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get rewarded for that. That's the other thing you need to understand is the power of rewards. Any behavior that's rewarded is going to be repeated. And so I had a client say to me one time, oh, I agree with that. Any good behavior that's rewarded is going to be repeated. I went, no. Any behavior that's rewarded is going to be repeated, even bad behavior. So, you know, if your dog is barking at somebody and acting in an aggressive way and you go, it's okay, you are rewarding that behavior. So what I do is I approach on a curve, I stand sideways, and I wait for that behavior to stop. I don't let the owner reward it. I say, don't feed into that energy at all. Just let the dog do that. And as soon as the dog gets tired of doing that and relaxes, click, treat. And you'd be surprised how often the behavior just starts to calm down because I got rewarded when I was calm.
Right. Well, it makes total sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. It's reminding me of behavior modification as a special ed teacher. Back when I was in school.
Kids.
It's a lot like kids. Not any different. What has been some of your biggest challenges with working with owners and dogs or both?
Well, you know, you remind me of, it was a client I had last year, one of my favorite clients. She had a pit bull named Titus, and she still has Titus. And Titus had bitten multiple people. Now, Titus weighed 90 pounds, so he hadn't bitten people with a lot of intensity. A 90-pound dog biting with intensity will get your dog taken from you. But he would take the hands, and he would do that, and he would chase people out of the yard. And so when I arrived, the very first session, Titus had the look of a stone cold killer on his face. He wanted to come get me. And I told her, I said, this is going to take a little while. So we probably had done 4 sessions out of a package. I'd sometimes do package programs with people. And at the start of the 5th session, Rebecca brought Titus out and she went, the whole neighborhood wants to know what I've done with this dog because he's wagging his tail now. And he's having fun and he's not looking like he wants to hurt people. Now, here's the thing. It took me into the 2nd package for me to figure out why Titus was nipping. And so I asked Rebecca, her husband traveled for his business and he would be gone for months at a time. I said, where does Titus sleep? And she went, in my bed. And I went, and how much do you rely on Titus to feel good? And she went, a lot. And I went, he feels the need to protect you. So
Oh.
the nipping is coming when people get near you.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, as soon as you can take that burden off of him, he'll
Mm-hmm.
start to relax. And she said, well, my husband's coming in off the road next month. And I said, well, I think that'll be good. And so, we were able to get him to where she could take him through the neighborhood and nobody was scared of him and he would act pleasant. And when her husband came home, then started to relax even more. But prior to that, you didn't want to get near Titus.
Interesting. Interesting. So it did switch, but it just took a little time. Yeah.
Yep. And,
You had to retrain. It's like retraining.
yeah,
Yes.
but quite truthfully, this stuff is not magic. It's not like a pair of pants that you alter and then it suddenly fits. You don't have to do anything with it. She's
Mm-hmm.
going to have to keep working on him and get him better and better and better because he's been doing this for a long time. He's a rescue dog, and we don't know what his background was. We have heard that it might not have been the most pleasant. So this is a continued work for Titus to get along. But she told me, as Rebecca told me, her husband said, Titus is pulled on the big boy pants now. He's able to get along in society. We walked him through a Lowe's and without a muzzle, and he walked right by everybody in Lowe's, and he was just a happy dog, and no one wanted to pet him because he's a big dog, but he didn't have any fear of anybody, didn't have any barking or growling. He was acting very calm and relaxed as we walked through Lowe's. And so
That's great.
yeah, so we were able to get him a little more normal.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. Congratulations on what you did with Titus there and helping that family. I'm curious, I know you said that Titus slept in the bed with her. Is that something that is it a case-by-case thing, or would you definitely say that isn't a good thing to sleep with your animal? I'm just curious.
I think it's a case-by-case thing, but here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you have taken your dog and put your dog on top of the organizational chart and the dog sleeps in the bed, and you have a dog that's got any leadership tendencies at all, that can create a problem. And so, what I always suggest to people is just get the dog out of the bed. Get the dog on the floor below you. The dog can be in the bedroom. My dog you see wandering around back there, she's a rescue dog. I don't know what her background was. She was found wandering around in the country, but that dog bed that you see back there, she sleeps on that in my bedroom not at the foot of the bed, but down at the other side of the room. And she stays there calmly at night, curled up in a ball. That's a safe thing. And she's not sharing my bed. She's not up there with me. Height can sometimes equal superiority, and she's not up there. If you're going to have your dog in the bed, and there are people who are going to do it no matter what I say, there should be a price for it. The dog should have to do some obedience to get up in the bed. Have the dog sit, have the dog lay down. Then that's the price of getting up on the bed or the furniture. So it's still you running that transaction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense. My mind is slipping back to growing up, and we had a German short-haired pointer that my brother was going to teach to be a hunting dog, which never happened. So the dog became a big baby in our family. And when my brother got married and moved out, the dog had his bed. So it was the dog's bed.
Yeah.
And we would go pet Duchess on the bed. So yeah, did that dog run the house? Looking back, probably, although it was a good dog. So I don't know what flow we still had of leadership. I think we had some, but not certainly, the techniques that you're teaching us all here. And I appreciate it. I love this. This is awesome.
Louise, what I always tell folks is, look, if you have dogs, like I have a client that's got 2 Basset Hounds. Okay. I mean, what's the implication if the Basset Hound is the leader in the house? I mean, generally no one is going to be bitten. No one's going to be chased out of the house. I mean, what does a Basset Hound do, right? But they just can decide whether they want to listen to you or not, whether they want to pay attention to you or not. I don't really have to pay attention to you if you're a lower dog to me,
Right.
Now, if you have a dog that's got any guard dog tendencies, got any leadership tendencies, like my client who had an Australian cattle dog, they still have her. At age 13 months, they rescued her. She had 4 owners in that period of time because she was so crazy, crazy wild with energy. She'd see a light on the floor. She would chase it. She would go ballistic barking at birds or squirrels. She would bark at them. She would nip them. and she had torn the upholstery out of the ceiling of 2 cars of 2 different owners because she saw animals on the side of the road, and she was so frustrated she would rip all that out. I was told this when the owner called me for the session. And so I said, all right, when I go over there, is she going to try to bite me? Because if she is, then we've got another way to start the session. She said, probably not, but she will go ballistic and she will lose it. I said, okay. So I went over to her house, and when Sandy opened the door, I walked in, shook hands with her, and focused directly on Sandy, paid no attention to Bella, the Australian cattle dog, who promptly ran up and sat in front of me and stared at me the whole time. And Sandy went, that's never happened. And I went, well, I'm not doing what you do, which is pay attention to all of that craziness.
Right. Rewarding that behavior.
And think about it, and following, because that craziness means I want some attention. So if I give her attention, she's initiated activity with me and I have followed her, which means she's running me. So I did none of that. I just focused on Sandy, and this dog proved herself to be what almost every herding dog is, a soldier. She said, oh, you're acting like the general. I'll come and sit beside you and wait for my orders. And the interesting thing is, before COVID-19, we would do a weekly walk for my clients, and Sandy would bring Bella, and Bella would sometimes act up, and I'd walk up and I go, can I have her? And she would hand her to me, and she'd straighten up like that. And she would go, why is she doing that? Because I'm not doing what you do. I'm leading her. I'm not paying attention to her behavior when she's trying to get me to do stuff. I'm not petting her when she wants to be petted. I'm not even paying attention to her at all. I'm just walking her, and I'm leading the walk. And if you will do that, the same thing will happen. See, that's my work, is to get the owner to do that.
Exactly.
Every time I could get Sandy to do that, Bella behaved just perfectly.
Right. So it is a lot working with the owner. On the business side of things, what has been some of your challenges, in either not necessarily the challenges with working with the people or the animals, but more the business side of things? What have been some of your challenges there?
Well, as I mentioned, I haven't really been doing this with a huge amount of effort until about 3 years ago. And I wouldn't even call the past 3 years a huge amount of effort. I have some pretty good income. I probably make, in terms of income, I add another half to what my normal corporate income is with this business, because I do it on the side. I do it in the evening, during the week, Monday through Thursday, when it's warm. And then on Fridays and Saturdays, I do the business. But where I'm going right now is I'm taking this online. I'm creating courses right now, and I'm giving myself a 12-month timeline to build the business online.
Great.
And what I'm creating is a membership where people can actually get access to me as part of their membership, because what's happened is the unintended benefit of COVID-19 is it has shown me that my work is easily done by Zoom. And so,
nice.
Yeah. And so I've made that pivot, and I spent 10 years teaching people how to sell over the telephone for Circuit City stores. So I know how to talk to people, and get my information across either on a phone call or a Zoom meeting. So it's an interesting scenario. And as I said, over the next 12 months, I'm building that whole business.
I love it. I love what you're doing, Doug, and it just makes so much sense right now, because there have been some things with COVID-19 that have made us be more creative, get out of the box, do some different things. I'm thinking of a client that I've worked with who has 2 dogs. I actually met one of the dogs. The pit bull came in, and the other one I think is a mutt, and they do not get along. Like, these dogs fight. It's the dogs that don't get along.
Yeah.
It does sound a little bit like the husband kind of just like is not leading. They do whatever they want, but from what I remember, and now I want you to work with them.
Well, I'll tell you, you might make this suggestion to them. What I find in those scenarios is what typically has happened is the owner has messed up the order of the dogs, meaning one of the dogs is the natural leader and one of the dogs is the follower. And usually these fights are a result of what is my rank in terms of the dog relative to the owner. And so if this dog right here is number 1 as far as the dogs are concerned, and my owner inadvertently elevates that dog over this dog, then this dog is going to start a fight to put him down.
To put it down.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
so, I always tell people, if whatever your number one dog is, do stuff with that dog first. He goes out first, he eats first, you look at him first, you pet him first. And I've got a former client who's opened their own, she and her husband have opened their own training business. They do board and train now. The way I met them was about 12 years ago. She had Rottweiler rescue and she called me. She said, I need some help. My Rottweilers are fighting with each other. And it was that exact thing. She had taken some of her younger dogs and elevated them over her older female, and the older female was having none of it. And as soon as they changed it and got the order back in place, everybody settled down. So
everybody settled down. Wow.
That could be it.
I just, I'm thinking out loud here, I guess. I love, you've taken your sales training, your leadership training, your coaching with what you've done with people, and you applied it to working with animals, and you figured it out though. It's like you figured out this little secret sauce. And it's absolutely brilliant. Because even though, like you said, it's so simple, it's hard.
Now, if folks want to see a little bit about what I do, they can go to my website. It's www.betterdogbehaviornow.com. And there is something on my site. When you go on there, a pop-up will come up, and this very subject that we're talking about, leadership, I've got a PDF that they can get for free. It's called Lead Nature's Way and Banish Your Dog's Problem Behavior Forever. And there's absolutely no cost to that. People can go and download that. And it's a good little synopsis of what we're talking about here today.
I love that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that beautiful gift. And thank you for sharing with us today. This has been just really enlightening. It's a conversation we don't get to have very often. It's somebody who's working with animals on such a high level. So I love that you're working on Zoom now, because like I said, I have clients here in Albuquerque that I'm thinking about already. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Doug doesn't have to be with you in person. He can help you. Yeah, absolutely. You can. So that's so exciting. So I'm so excited to get this out there for you. And thank you for the work that you're doing with our, with our people and our dogs. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. This has been a lot of fun. I love what you do. You and I have known each other for a while, and I love you. And I thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. So this has been such a gift. And we just want to say thank you to all of our audience here. And if you have any questions or comments, please, share them with us. We'll put Doug's information there for you too, and that free gift on Better Dog Behavior Now, and look that up. And then we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.